I want to go on a trip. It was a simple sentence, but for Rafi, it carried the weight of 1,000 dreams. Rafi lived in a small town where every day looked almost the same. The sun rose over the quiet rooftops, children hurried to school, shopkeepers opened their stores, and by evening the streets grew silent again. Life was peaceful, but predictable. Rafi often stood by his bedroom window at night, staring at the moon, wondering what the world beyond his town looked like. He had never traveled far. The furthest he had gone was to his uncle's house in the neighboring district, but in his heart he wanted more. He wanted mountains, oceans, forests, cities full of lights, and roads that never seemed to end. One evening, during dinner, he finally said it aloud. "Abu, I want to go on a trip." His father looked up from his plate and smiled. "A trip? Where do you want to go?" "Anywhere," Rafi replied eagerly. "Somewhere new, somewhere beautiful." His mother laughed softly. "Trips cost money, you know." Rafi nodded. He understood. His father worked hard to support the family. They were not poor, but they were careful with expenses. A big vacation seemed like a luxury. Still, the idea refused to leave his heart. That night, Rafi opened his old notebook and wrote at the top of a blank page, "Trip plan." If he couldn't travel immediately, he could at least plan. He began researching places in Bangladesh he had never seen before. One name caught his attention instantly: Cox's Bazar. The pictures he found online showed endless golden beaches touching the blue waters of the Bay of Bengal. It was the longest natural sea beach in the world. The waves sparkled under the sun, and people walked along the shore with laughter in their eyes. Rafi imagined himself standing there, feeling the wind in his hair. He wrote in his notebook, "Destination, Cox's Bazar. Reason, to see the sea for the first time." Rafi had never seen the ocean in real life. He had only watched it in movies. The thought of standing before something so vast and powerful filled him with excitement. The next day, he shared his idea with his best friend, Imran. "I want to go to Cox's Bazar," Rafi said during recess. Imran's eyes widened. "Really? I went there once when I was small. The sea looks endless." "Exactly," Rafi replied. "I want to feel how small I am compared to something so big." Imran laughed. "That sounds deep." But for Rafi, it wasn't just about fun. It was about discovering himself. Over the next few weeks, Rafi decided to save money. He stopped buying unnecessary snacks from the school canteen. He helped neighbors with small tasks to earn a little extra cash. Every coin he saved went into a small metal box hidden inside his cupboard. Whenever he felt tired or discouraged, he opened his notebook and looked at the pictures of Cox's Bazar again. Sometimes he also searched for other beautiful places in Bangladesh. Another place amazed him, Sajek Valley. The images showed hills covered with green trees and clouds floating so low that they almost touched the earth. People called it the Queen of Hills. It looked like a place from a dream. Rafi added another page to his notebook. "Future trip, Sajek Valley. Reason, to touch the clouds." Months passed. His savings grew slowly. One evening, his father noticed him counting money carefully. "What are you saving for?" his father asked. Rafi hesitated, then spoke honestly. "For a trip. I don't want to just wish for it. I want to help make it happen." His father looked at him thoughtfully. "Why is this trip so important to you?" Rafi took a deep breath. "Because I want to see the world. I want to understand how big life is. I don't want to grow up only knowing this town." There was silence in the room. Then his father smiled gently. "You're growing up, Rafi." A few days later, his father made an announcement at dinner. "Pack your bags. We're going to Cox's Bazar next month." Rafi froze. "Really?" "Yes." his mother said with a warm smile. "You've worked hard, and we think it's time you see the sea." Rafi couldn't believe it. His dream was finally coming true. The journey felt magical. The bus ride was long, but Rafi didn't complain. He watched the changing landscapes outside the window, green fields, rivers, small towns, passing by like scenes in a movie. And then, at last, he saw it. The ocean. It stretched farther than his eyes could see. The waves rolled toward the shore in endless rhythm. The salty wind touched his face, and he felt something shift inside him. He walked slowly toward the water. When the first wave touched his feet, he laughed out loud. It was cold, powerful, alive. At that moment, Rafi realized something important. The trip was not just about the destination, it was about courage. The courage to dream, to speak up, and to work for what he wanted. That evening, he sat on the sand watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of orange and pink. His father sat beside him. "So," his father asked softly, "was it worth it?" Rafi nodded. "Yes, but now I want to see more." His father laughed. "One trip at a time." As the sun disappeared into the horizon, Rafi made a silent promise to himself. This was only the beginning. One day, he would travel beyond Bangladesh. He would see mountains covered in snow, cities that never slept, and forests older than history. But for now, standing barefoot on the shore of Cox's Bazar, he felt complete. Because sometimes, all it takes is one simple sentence to change your life. "I want to go on a trip." And sometimes, that sentence is the start of a beautiful journey. The trip to Cox's Bazar changed Rafi in ways he never expected. When he returned home, everything looked the same. The same streets, the same tea stalls, the same quiet evenings. But inside him, something was different. The world no longer felt small. He had seen the ocean, and now his dreams were bigger. One night, while lying in bed, he opened his notebook again. Under the page where he had written Cox's Bazar, completed, he added a new title, Next Dream, The Mountains. He remembered the pictures of Sajak Valley, the clouds floating between hills, the sunrise views, the peaceful silence of nature. This time, he didn't just want to visit the sea. He wanted to stand above the earth and look down at the world. The next morning at breakfast, he said confidently, "I want to go to Sajak Valley next." His mother raised an eyebrow playfully. "Already planning the next trip?" Rafi smiled. "Dreaming never stops." His father chuckled. "Let's see what we can do." A few months later, during winter vacation, Rafi's dream came true again. The journey to Sajak was different from Cox's Bazar. Instead of long, flat roads, there were winding paths through green hills. The car moved slowly up and down steep slopes. On both sides, endless trees stretched toward the sky. Rafi pressed his face against the window, amazed. "It feels like we're climbing into the clouds," he whispered.
When they finally reached Sajak Valley, it was late afternoon. The air felt cooler, fresher. The sky seemed closer. Their small wooden cottage stood on a hilltop, overlooking layers of mountains fading into the distance. That night, Rafi couldn't sleep properly. He was too excited about the sunrise everyone talked about. Before dawn, he woke up and stepped outside quietly. The sky was still dark, but a faint light appeared on the horizon. Slowly, the sun began to rise. Clouds floated below the hills like a white ocean. As the sunlight touched them, they glowed golden. It looked unreal, like a painting made by nature itself. Rafi stood there silently. For the first time in his life, he felt truly small, but in a beautiful way. The mountains didn't make him feel weak. They made him feel free. His father joined him and placed a hand on his shoulder. "What are you thinking?" Rafi replied softly, "There's so much more out there." His father nodded. "Yes, and you can see it if you work hard." That sentence stayed in Rafi's heart. A new goal. On the way back home, Rafi wasn't just thinking about his next vacation. He was thinking about his future. He realized something important during his trips. Travel wasn't only about seeing places. It was about learning. At Cox's Bazaar, he learned how powerful nature can be. At Sajek, he learned how peaceful silence can feel. He wanted more experiences like that. But he also understood something clearly now. Travel requires money, planning, and responsibility. So he made a new decision. "I will study hard," he told himself. "One day, I will earn enough to travel anywhere I want." He started focusing more on his studies. Geography became his favorite subject. Whenever the teacher talked about different countries, climates, and landscapes, Rafi listened with shining eyes. He began researching international destinations too. Snow-covered mountains in Switzerland, the busy streets of Tokyo, the deserts of Dubai. But one place caught his attention deeply: Nepal. The Himalayas, the tallest mountains in the world. He imagined himself standing before Mount Everest one day, feeling the cold wind on his face. A bigger dream. One evening, while helping his father in the shop, Rafi said, "Abu, one day I want to travel outside Bangladesh." His father looked at him seriously. "Then prepare yourself for that life." "How?" "Education," his father replied. "Education is your passport." Rafi understood. From that day, his trips were no longer just vacations. They became motivation. Whenever he felt tired while studying, he closed his eyes and remembered. The sound of waves in Cox's Bazaar, the golden clouds of Sajek Valley, the feeling of standing somewhere new and unknown. And it pushed him forward. The promise. One night, Rafi wrote something new in his notebook. "I don't just want to go on trips. I want to build a life where travel is part of who I am." He underlined it twice. The boy who once simply said, "I want to go on a trip," was now dreaming of a life full of journeys. And deep inside, he knew this was only the beginning. Years passed. Rafi was no longer the little boy staring out of his bedroom window. He was now a university student, studying geography, just as he had once dreamed. Maps, landscapes, climate systems, and cultures fascinated him. But no matter how much he studied from books, one thought always returned to his heart. "I want to see the world with my own eyes." One afternoon, something unexpected happened. His university announced an international study tour. Destination: Nepal. Rafi's heart began to race. Nepal, the land of the Himalayas. The country where the tallest mountain in the world stands proudly above the clouds. He remembered the first time he had seen pictures of snow-covered peaks. Now, the opportunity to stand before them felt real. But there was one problem. The trip cost a lot of money. Rafi went home that weekend, carrying both excitement and worry in his heart. At dinner, he told his parents about the opportunity. His mother listened carefully. His father remained silent for a moment, thinking. "Do you really want to go?" his father asked finally. Rafi looked straight into his eyes. "Yes, more than anything." His father nodded slowly. "Then we will find a way." Rafi didn't want to put pressure on his family again. This time, he decided to take responsibility. He applied for a partial scholarship offered by the university for outstanding students. He studied harder than ever before. Late nights, early mornings, no distractions. Weeks later, the results were announced. Rafi had earned the scholarship. When he saw his name on the list, he couldn't believe it. He closed his eyes and whispered softly, "This is it." The flight to Nepal was Rafi's first time on an airplane. As the plane lifted off the ground, he felt his stomach drop, but his heart rise. Through the small window, he watched Bangladesh become smaller and smaller beneath the clouds. He was finally leaving his country for the first time. When the plane approached Nepal, something magical appeared outside the window. White peaks, massive, silent, powerful. The Himalayas. Rafi pressed his forehead against the glass. Tears gathered in his eyes, not from sadness, but from awe. "This is real," he whispered. In Kathmandu, everything felt different. The streets were lively, colorful, filled with prayer flags fluttering in the wind. The air was cooler than Bangladesh. The mountains surrounded the city like giant guardians. During the tour, Rafi and his classmates visited historical temples, learned about Nepalese culture, and explored mountain viewpoints. But the most unforgettable moment came during a sunrise trip to a hilltop near the Himalayas. It was early morning. The sky was dark blue. Slowly, as the sun began to rise, golden light touched the snow-covered peaks. The mountains glowed like fire. Rafi stood silently, remembering the sunrise at Sajek Valley years ago. But this was different. This was bigger, higher, colder, stronger. He felt the same beautiful smallness, but deeper than before. His professor stood beside him and asked, "What are you thinking, Rafi?" Rafi smiled. "I'm thinking about how a small dream can grow." The professor nodded. "Travel changes people." "Yes," Rafi replied softly. "It changes how you see the world, and how you see yourself." A realization. That night, sitting alone in his hotel room, Rafi opened his old notebook, the same one he had used as a child. He had carried it with him. He turned the pages. Cox's Bazar completed. Sajek Valley completed. Nepal completed. For a moment, he just stared at the words. Then he added something new. Dreams are not faraway places. They are destinations waiting for courage. He realized something important. When he was younger, he thought trips were about escaping his small town. Now he understood. Trips were about expanding his mind. He had learned about different cultures, new languages, different ways of life. He had seen how people in another country prayed, worked, smiled, and lived. The world was vast, but people everywhere shared the same hopes and emotions. The next chapter. On the flight back home, Rafi looked down at the clouds again. But this time, he wasn't just a boy chasing trips. He had a bigger goal. "I want to become someone who studies the world," he thought. Maybe a researcher. Maybe a travel writer. Maybe a teacher. He wanted to inspire other young students who thought travel was impossible. When he returned home, his father hugged him proudly. "So," his father asked with a smile, "was it worth it?" Rafi laughed gently. "Every second." Then he added, "But Abu, this is not the end." His father smiled knowingly. "I know." That night, standing by his bedroom window once again, Rafi looked at the moon, just like he had years ago. But now, the world didn't feel far away anymore. It felt reachable, because he had learned the most important lesson of all. A trip doesn't start with money. It doesn't start with tickets. It doesn't even start with a destination. It starts with one simple sentence. "I want to go on a trip." And sometimes, that sentence can take you all the way to the top of the world. Years moved forward like pages turning in a book. Rafi was no longer just a university student dreaming about the world. He had graduated with honors in geography and earned a scholarship for higher studies. But more importantly, he had discovered his true passion, not just traveling, but telling stories about the world. After completing his studies, Rafi started writing travel blogs. At first, only a few people read his posts. He wrote about the sound of waves at Cox's Bazar, the golden sunrise in Sajek, and the silent strength of the Himalayas in Nepal. But his writing was different. He didn't just describe places. He described feelings. Slowly, people began to notice. One day, a well-known travel magazine contacted him. They wanted him to write a featured article about young travelers from South Asia. Rafi couldn't believe it. The boy who once saved coins in a metal box was now being paid to travel and write. His first international assignment took him to Turkey. He explored the colorful markets of Istanbul, watched hot air balloons rise over Cappadocia, and stood in awe before ancient historical sites. Each journey deepened his understanding of culture and humanity. Then came another opportunity, Switzerland. Snow-covered mountains reminded him of Nepal, but the peaceful villages and lakes had their own unique charm. Standing near the Alps, he smiled quietly. I'm still that same boy, he thought, just standing in a different place. Travel became part of his life, not as luxury, but as learning, giving back. Despite visiting many countries, Rafi never forgot his small hometown. Whenever he returned home, children gathered around him, listening with wide eyes as he told stories of oceans, mountains, and distant lands. One evening, a young boy asked him, Bia, how can someone like me travel the world? Rafi smiled gently. Start by dreaming, he replied. Then study, work hard, save money, be curious. The world belongs to those who prepare for it. He later started free workshops in local schools, teaching students about geography, cultures, and travel opportunities. He wanted them to know that big dreams are not only for rich people. They're for brave people. Years later, Rafi found himself standing on a mountain peak during sunrise, this time in a country far from home. The sky turned golden. Clouds floated below him. The wind touched his face. It reminded him of Sajak. It reminded him of Nepal. It reminded him of the first wave that touched his feet in Cox's Bazar. He closed his eyes for a moment. Life had taken him farther than he ever imagined. But the most important journey wasn't across countries. It was the journey from doubt to belief, from I wish to I will, from someday to today. He took out his old notebook. Yes, he still carried it. The pages were worn, but the words were alive. On the last page, he wrote, I once wanted to go on a trip. Now my life itself is a journey. He smiled, because he finally understood something beautiful. A trip doesn't just change where you are. It changes who you are. And every great journey begins with a simple dream spoken out loud. I want to go on a trip.